The title of this video and subsequent videos, the title is about my predictions of a stupid world that is marching to oblivion. And in the form of a prelude, let me say this. I just cannot help but believe that the coming days and months may very well bring calamities and disasters to our world, and more specifically to the Middle East, that are unimaginable. There's no doubt about it in my mind that there is a clash of civilizations, there's a clash of values and beliefs between the Middle East and the Western world, but also a clash of beliefs within the Middle East itself. These clashes, in my mind, will undoubtedly result with deaths and devastations of biblical proportions. And in my mind, the greatest cause of all this will be the way that the world relates to one religion, Islam. The way the world sees Islam and the way that we react to it. Speaking of Islam, I want from the outset to voice my personal opinion that there is no such thing as moderate and radical Islam. There are moderate and radical Muslims. The truth is simply this: different people use what they want to use from Islam for their own specific personal agendas. But as a total, Islam is what is written in their holy book and in their Quran, in their hadith, in their sunnah, all the books that I'm not familiar with, but I know that that is what Islam, at least to the best of my understanding, that's what Islam is. The real question is the beliefs and values that moderate Muslims and radical Muslims, are they coming from the same source, from the same text? And as I listen to both groups, I can't help but say that the answer is yes, it does come from the same source. So to continue to make the distinction between moderate and fundamental Islam is a red herring. The main issue with Islam is that it has texts that are used or misused by the radical groups, and hopefully not by the moderates. The texts of Islam are theoretically clear texts that they are either right to follow or wrong. And I'm not here to judge, but I believe that it's up to human society to pass judgment on these texts, especially if these texts govern the actions, the beliefs, and fundamentally the lives of over 1.4 billion people on the planet Earth. This is the huge debate between those that defend or attack Islam. How to interpret these texts and how they're being used. And as we do that, I would echo what I heard from numerous people that said that there's currently a cancer that's growing in the body of the Middle East, and in my opinion, the whole world. This cancer is like a disease in a very sick person who has decided that my cancer is terminal and the only way I'm going to cure it is by exploding myself and the whole world around me into smithereen. I refer to this as the Samson effect. Those that have read the Bible know that Samson was blinded by his enemies, and in order to take revenge on these enemies who cut his hair, which was the source of his strength, and his enemies who enslaved his people, what did he do? He pushed on the columns of the temple where he was brought for their pleasure, for his enemies' pleasure, and he brought the whole temple down on them and on himself. He killed himself and his enemies in the same moment. That is the Samson effect. Well, action like these are happening every day in the Middle East. Every day. There's so many groups that are like Samson, blind, and who are willing to bring immeasurable atrocities and pain and suffering and devastation upon people simply because they are not of the same faith or beliefs. And unfortunately, I would say that it's not a question of if, but a question of when the Middle East is going to blow up to smithereen. Now, unfortunately, the people in the Western world, who may very well have had a central role in creating this current Samson effect in the Middle East, are busy with their own political and socioeconomic issues. They're not watching carefully what's happening. Far from their agenda is this reaction to the Middle East dilemma, to this cancer that's growing and its implications to the world and to the exploding Middle East. All the warning of what will happen to the West if this explosion that I'm predicting is coming, will, in my opinion, it will backfire, frankly. These things are going to backfire on the West itself. Especially when these so-called jihadists and extremists decide to take their anger on the Western world in whatever form, and more importantly, to demonstrate this anger in the land of the West directly, much like they did on 9/11. How many jihadists do you think it will take to have access to weapons and sympathizers in the West to stabilize or destabilize, I meant to say, any nation? To destabilize any Western nation, I would venture to say that all it would take are very few hundreds jihadists spread out and network through Western world cities. Already we see demonstrations that are supporting ISIS in Germany and the Netherlands. Huge numbers that, based on surveys that I have consulted with. The number of fighters that are required to destabilize the West are there. They need not have access to sophisticated weapons. Believe me, they don't need weapons of mass destruction. All it takes are really AK-47 in the streets of major cities to change the way our civilization is. These extremists will fire at any and all people because they consider all of us as kafirin, infidels. Our blood is halal for them. They think they're going to gain mercies as they go to Jannah or paradise, where virgins, many of them, are waiting for them. They believe really that our blood is halal. So just imagine a scenario like that in our cities and how quickly our way of life will disappear forever. I wish I can be positive or optimistic about the future, but there is total apathy in the West, and particularly in North America. No one seems to want to react or to accept my words. They're simply, people are busy watching their football games and their soccers and their hockey and their best pictures and whatever. They're simply blind to this impending apocalypse that's upon us. I'm no theologian, I'm not religious, I'm not evangelical by any sense of the imagination. But an apocalypse is awaiting us. And the cancer in the Middle East will not be cured unless incredibly difficult choices are made by all of us who would, of course, be annihilated by this apocalypse. So, what's the nature of this cancer? It's no use listening to different people who give it different names. Some call it Arab Spring turn on its head, some call it dictatorship causing revolutions, some call it Islamic fundamentalism, interpreting their Islam in their own way. There are many, many explanations and many characterizations. Something, if we know how to define it, then maybe we can find a cure. I think not. I believe not. And I'm worried, sick, that the cancer has spread so much that we cannot operate. In the next video, I'll give you my predictions what's going to happen. Please stay tuned.